Alcohol has been a part of the human experience pretty much since there were humans. In many cultures, including my own, drinking is totally normal and sometimes even necessary to fully participate in community life. But a new generation of sober, curious youth has been changing the way that we as a culture interact with alcohol. And the reasons why are both super encouraging and kind of concerning. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that people's relationship to alcohol can be very complex and sensitive. We're not going to get into alcoholism or alcohol use disorder in this video, as it's beyond the scope of what we're doing here. So we're gonna start at the beginning, like the beginning. It may just be the case that our primate ancestors evolved to metabolize alcohol before they were even human. According to the drunken monkey hypothesis, which, I kid you not, is actually what they call it, these ancestors evolved to enjoy fermented fruit in part because that's when fruit has the most calories. When you're spending your life running from saber-toothed tigers and dodging carnivorous plants, okay, maybe I made that part up. I don't actually know what they'd be running from. But the point is, calories are super important for survival. In dangerous conditions, it can be adaptive to deliberately seek out high-calorie foods like alcohol. But things really got going when we learned how to grow food and brew drinks on a large scale. With the rise of agriculture, we went from adaptive to full-on obsessed with the stuff. We have even dedicated gods to alcohol, like a lot of them. A personal favorite of mine is the Greek god of wine and fertility, Dionysus, who had a dual nature. On one hand, he brought joy and ecstasy. On the other, he'd bring brutal and blinding rage. I think it's pretty safe to say that we humans are still wrestling with that kind of duality with alcohol. The conversation suggests two possibilities for why the rise of alcohol coincides with the rise of civilization. On one hand, it's possible that alcohol actually helped build civilization, that it enabled social connections and creativity that contributed towards innovations. On the other hand, it could also be just that civilization has been so freaking horrific that we kind of need alcohol to drown our sorrows and forget about all the plagues, wars, oppression, etc. Alcohol can of course be a gift, whether bonding over a bottle of wine at a family dinner or dancing till dawn with friends and a six-pack, and even partaking in religious rituals. Alcohol, without a doubt, has shaped the way we build communities, connect with one another, and unwind. There are healthier ways and less healthy ways of engaging with alcohol, but I believe that the why in our choice to drink is gonna be a pretty big determining factor in whether that experience is nourishing or straight up dysfunctional. The college binge drinking phenomenon is a pretty up example where it's totally normal to get completely wasted on the regular. Blacking out is a common occurrence and not the red flag that it maybe should be. You almost can't socialize without drinking, unless you want to put juice in your beer pong cup. Fun fact, binge drinking has a huge impact on brain development. So if you're doing this at a young age, even as a young adult, you're putting your brain at real risk. Alcohol has the most impact on the hippocampus and the frontal lobe, which are responsible for things like memory, planning, decision-making, impulse control, and language. Everything important that you want to be able to do long-term. And what makes it even worse is that in many circumstances, we don't even really want to drink, but we do it anyway. Maybe it's the FOMO getting the best of you. Maybe you're kind of broke, but all your buddies are drinking, so you order one too, and you'll figure it out later. Perhaps you have a high-pressured job and want to stay clear-headed, but get weird looks when you order a Shirley Temple instead of a Negroni like everyone else.
I don't know, a Negroni?
A what?
I get it, I've been there. Not the Shirley Temple thing, but in a society with a nightclub culture that celebrates ballers buying shots for everyone, yeah, I've sneakily thrown a shot over my shoulder in order to stay standing. Safety first, people. This sentiment is fueled by media that seems obsessed with alcohol consumption.
We should buy a bar. Of course, we should buy a bar!
Consider how many TV shows are set largely in bars or feature heavy drinkers.
Would you put day drinking under experience or special skills?
And that's not even getting into all the ad campaigns. Companies make a ton off of our drinking habits. We're talking a literal literal trillion-dollar industry here. I don't even know how to wrap my mind around that number. There are a lot of very rich, influential people who are very much incentivized to keep us sipping on that liquid courage that's gonna make us fun and sexy. Whether it's because of aggressive advertising, the pressures of life, or an isolated society that struggles with real connection, in many places we've started using alcohol as a crutch. Sometimes it almost feels like alcohol is the only way we know how to make friends, unwind, and have a good time. If you choose something else, you have to explain yourself, as if pregnancy is the only valid reason you wouldn't be drinking. Or antibiotics, which for some people is just gonna make others wonder if you're actually pregnant. And yet, there are so many valid reasons a person might wish to opt out.
I ordered water because I no longer drink alcohol.
Alcohol is so normalized, it can be easy to assume the dangers are minimal or even irrelevant. But it's been called the deadliest drug for a reason. Globally, it's one of the leading causes of preventable deaths and is associated with nearly 1 in 10 deaths in the 15 to 49-year-old population. It can make us violent and dangerous, all while slowly breaking down our bodies. Roughly 40% of convicted murderers, child abusers, and sexual offenders were under the influence when committing their crimes. And 30% of car crashes involve alcohol. Now, I'm sure most of you lovely viewers are responsible, non-murderous drinkers, but there's also growing awareness that even mild to moderate drinking can do damage to your body. Not to freak you out, but modern research is suggesting that alcohol is a cause of 7 forms of cancer, and that list might be growing. Another recent study linked all levels of drinking to increased cardiovascular disease, and a global 2018 study even concluded that no amount of alcohol is safe. Research is still ongoing in this area, so we can't say with utmost certainty exactly what alcohol does to our bodies long term, but at the end of the day, it is a neurotoxin with a lot of downsides. My personal least favorite thing about alcohol is how much it dehydrates us. That alone can have some pretty detrimental effects. So stay hydrated, drink the water. It's super fair if you don't want to drink. But it seems like until recently, we haven't really been able to talk about this honestly. But thanks to Gen Z, things seem to be changing. It's funny because youth are almost always the ones getting a bad rep for irresponsible substance use. And there's definitely some truth to this. We've all been teenagers, and we've all done some stupid shit as teenagers. But in an unexpected turn of events, Gen Z Americans actually drink less than older generations, followed by millennials. There are, of course, a whole boatload of reasons this might be, but let me offer you a few. For one, Gen Z is apparently more risk-averse than older groups, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. At the younger end, this group wasn't even in high school in 2020 when there were mass lockdowns and many of society's ways of connecting completely changed almost overnight. They've spent some of their key developing years living in constant anxiety of dying from the plague, concerns about the climate crisis, constant access to information at the palm of their hands, and throw in that first-hand experience that the world can completely change and plunge us all into chaos in a matter of weeks. As they get older, they realize that they've inherited a broken economic system that's left millennials and centennials living from paycheck to paycheck. Oh, and also if they make a single stupid mistake, it'll probably be documented on social media for the rest of time. Suddenly, that college binge drinking session seems a lot less appealing. On a less depressing note, this is also the generation that's grown up with more access to information than ever before. Social media can seem like a bad guy in many stories, but it's really opened up the door to a lot of conversations that we just weren't having before, such as possible downsides to alcohol. In general, it really seems like younger people are trying to adopt more intentional lifestyles now that they have so much access to voices that challenge the norm. Not to mention the extra emphasis we've had on keeping our bodies healthy these past few years. Taken all together, you can see the appeal in cutting back on booze. It's cheaper, healthier, and doesn't come with the constant fear that drunken videos of you from spring break will one day surface and ruin your life, as a completely random example. And it's not just Gen Z. In the last few years, we've been seeing more people in the high-performance world just get sick of the pressure to drink.
Drink the drink.
But I don't want the drink.
He doesn't want the drink.
So, These high-performance folks, the type who have their entire life planned, who work hard day in and day out, take breaks by going to the gym, and constantly push themselves to do better. Turns out alcohol doesn't really benefit that kind of lifestyle, even though it can weirdly be a huge part of success-driven corporate culture. It's when the professional crowd started writing books like Sober Curious, published in 2018, that the backlash to drinking culture really got going. To be clear, this movement isn't about abstaining from alcohol entirely, it's about consuming it more intentionally, whatever that means to you. After all, moderate drinking, defined as 1 to 2 drinks a day depending on your body, in all likelihood isn't going to hurt you if you're generally a healthy person. And it can actually have some benefits. I know we shared some pretty freaky facts about alcohol earlier, but here's some good stuff. Moderate alcohol consumption can actually reduce your risk of heart disease. Red wine in particular is rich in antioxidants, might have probiotic function, and may even help with blood pressure. You can certainly find foods with similar benefits, but it's comforting to know that it's not all bad. The key is to find whatever works for you, which is what the Sober Curious movement is all about. People are experimenting with varying degrees of sobriety to clear their minds, lose weight, prevent disease, manage anxiety, or even just get more in touch with themselves and their own inner confidence. They then share their stories and experiences on social media, often highlighting rock-hard abs, delicious cocktails, and fun times that didn't require an ounce of alcohol. Sobriety's like cool now. The movement is so strong that bars and breweries have been forced to respond. We've seen an explosion of non-alcoholic options, including beer, wine, even whiskey, and sober bars becoming more and more a thing. Now I know what you're thinking. This is a future-proof video. Surely there's some kind of nefarious dark side here that we're gonna hit you with at the very end, just to make sure you never get too hopeful about anything. But honestly, we can't really think of one. I'm sure there are some major creeps out there profiting from this somehow. Capitalism, am I right? But it is just so encouraging to see that more people are becoming conscious of how they're engaging with alcohol. There's an opportunity to learn something about yourself in the process. People are discovering that they are in fact funny and conversational and a joy to be around all on their own without help from liquid courage. And that some of the best bonding experiences happen when you're thinking clearly and can actually remember what you talked about the next day. At the very least, you don't have that headache. As someone who's worked as a bartender, server, and sommelier for 15 years and counting, there's more than one part of me that thinks this movement is a good thing for everyone. I have a genuine love for wine, beer, and spirits, probably more than the average drinker. And I think that the Sober Curious movement is only gonna help our society's relationship with booze. There's a lot to enjoy, but when consumed in excess or for the wrong reasons, alcohol can wreak havoc on your body, your life, and even your community. As with most things, moderation and intentionality can make all of the difference. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm really looking forward to see where this movement takes us, as long as it doesn't take us to another prohibition moment. I'd love to know what you all think about this, so leave comments down below. And while you're here, consider hitting the like or subscribe button so that you don't miss the next one.